Hey, Everyday Athlete podcast listeners. Welcome to another episode of Enduring Minds. Today, we have a very special guest. Derek Sprau will be joining us. If that name sounds familiar, it's because you listen to the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, as he's been on our Fireside Chat, Beyond the Finish Line, and our Food Fight Friday at the Aid Station. Derek is a dear friend of mine and a valued member of the RTB and EAC community. But before we bring him on, let's introduce you to Evan Birch, who is my co-host. Evan, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, Jason. You're coming off of a 50K, I believe.
It got rained out. It is, yeah.
That was the one. It was that was the UTB one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild that they sent an email that over 3 days they got 13 inches of rain on the ranch, and it turned, they said, dry riverbeds into basically rivers where they would normally take like a side by side to fill up aid stations and stuff, and they couldn't move it.
Wow.
And
Incredible.
you, my friend, are just getting back from the UK, where you showed Supernova, the 100-Mile Dog documentary. How did that go?
Yeah, it went extremely well. We were very impressed to just get the feedback that we were, not expecting, but the feedback that you expect when you put something like this out in the world. And got humbled by a local runner. I actually, Jacob Tonkin, who we just interviewed on our previous podcast, I stayed with him. So,
very cool.
Again, making those connections, and he destroyed me in the fells of his local Lake District area. And yeah, I had a little minor setback with my ankle because of that, but it was worth it. So.
Well, this is what's cool. So we're going to bring Derek on here, and this is where all these full circle moments come into play. So you got to meet Jacob after interviewing him here, and I met Derek earlier this year when we were in Chicago, and we got to run a little bit. And I don't know, maybe more importantly, sat down to break bread and talked for, I don't know, it felt like 6 hours, probably less, but it was just awesome to connect with him. So I'm happy that he accepted the invitation to come on the show here.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's about, though, right? It's making those connections in real life and realizing that how connected we all are in this world. So
it's awesome. So enough of us mumbling to each other. Let's bring Derek on and let's jump into this show. My friend, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm doing fantastic, dude. I know we chatted in the green room for about 15 minutes beforehand, but I'm super excited for this conversation because, as I mentioned, we met in Chicago earlier this year. We ran a little bit there and then had, food and some Topo Chicos for what felt like 5 or 6 hours, just getting to know each other. And I want the world to get to know you the way I got to know you in that brief time. And maybe you guys, who are listening to Derek, maybe you can end up on a text thread with him and Joe as well, because we've got that going on, which blows up just about on a daily basis. But before we get started, and Evan started doing this year with season 2, is asking you, the guest, who is Derek Sprau?
Derek Sprau is a lot of people. Probably depends on who you ask. I wear a lot of hats. I'm an ultra runner. I'm a father. I'm a son. I'm a grandson. I'm an employee. I'm lots of business owner. I'm lots of things to lots of people.
Yeah. One of the things I'm always fascinated by is the first word that comes out of our guests' mouth when they describe themselves. So we've heard father, we've heard friend, and now we hear ultra runner. Why is that, do you think, the first word that came out of your mouth when you think about who is Derek Sprau?
Well, I would say for sure in the last 2 years, it's just been a very prevalent part of my life. It's something that has shaped me on a lot of levels, mentally and physically, and allowed me the time and solitude to work through a lot of things in my life and see life in a very different way.
And we focus a lot on, I'll say, ourselves when it comes to the ultra world. It's a very, I like don't want to use the word selfish, but it's a very selfish pursuit in one level. But the people that stand behind us while we're doing it, I think, are the ones that are the unsung heroes in our backgrounds. So who stands behind you to allow you to go after these things in this ultra world?
A lot of people, friends, family, kids, everyone. I'm surrounded by great people, and for sure, one of the biggest things that has, really shaped me a lot, especially in this last year, is just this community itself, the ultra running community. Just it's such an amazing, primarily judgment-free zone. Obviously, there's anomalies everywhere, but for the most part, it is just one of the most welcoming and supportive communities that I've been a part of. And not that it's not true everywhere, but my history prior to ultra running, as a lot of people know, was years ago and heavily in the road racing community. And a lot of road racing is people trying to beat other people. And I find that in a lot of ultra running, it's people trying to beat themselves. They're out there trying to set these, milestone distance markers for themselves. And so when you're out there, because you're not necessarily competing with the person next to you, I find a lot of just support. Everybody's cheering everybody on. I've run races. When I ran Mohican with Joe, the guy who won the race, who was just obviously lapping the crap out of everybody on these loops, every time he was passing people, he was cheering everybody on. You're doing awesome. Keep going. He's running up a 30% grade like it's flat ground, and you're struggling to die, but he's there cheering for you. Everybody's just out there supporting everybody. I love that, and it's been amazing.
One of the things I hadn't thought about until you started talking was what did we know? How do I phrase this? We didn't know what was missing from our lives until we got into a particular sport. What did you find was missing from your life that you fell in love with this sport that it filled in that space?
I would say the two biggest things are the confidence that it's provided me in getting through those challenges and breaking through those milestone distances, and how I'm able to apply that confidence to my life, knowing that, hey, if I was able to get through this night where I felt like I was dying on the trail and push through that to the finish line, then I can push through this tough thing at work or this tough thing at home or whatever it is. And the other big thing is that community. So when you said that, that reminded me of something that somebody said to me a while back. Another close friend that I've made in this community said, it's like ultra running trail community feels like family that you never knew you needed. And that rings real true with me. It's this community of people that I didn't really know how badly I needed in my life until they were there.
It's interesting to me because we are ultra runners, the three of us, but we didn't all start on rocks and dirt and twigs and roots and gravel, right? We started in the road space where the vast majority of people start. And we left that space. I'm going back in 2026, back to road running and running marathons as a new challenge. But I wonder and I'd love to get your take on it. Like, what was in that space that we didn't like? Because if you like it, you stay there, right? Like if you like something, you continue to do it. But there must have been something that you were like, this is great, but it's not enough.
I don't necessarily know that I didn't like it per se. And I've said this before on another podcast. A lot of it for me just purely boiled down to accessibility. I was in my early 20s, I was living in downtown Chicago. Trail running's not really an option. It's pretty hard to find single track in downtown Chicago, you know what I mean, or anywhere near it, unless you want to go for an hour and a half drive. So when I fell into running, it just was default going to be road. And like you early on, I had a lot of experience in the triathlon community. I worked managing a specialty store for several years that did, run specialty and triathlon. We sold bikes and wetsuits and everything. And it's a great community. I just, and even then, I think I just kind of always knew this was where I was going to end up. When I first got into the running scene in the early 2000s, that's when ultra running was kind of really becoming a thing that more than 10 people knew about. Dean Karnazes was publishing his first books, and Born to Run had just come out. And in reading all those things and being somebody who's always been drawn to the wilderness and mountains and camping and hiking, regardless of running, I just kind of always knew that was where I wanted to take my running. And more than anything, it was just that other things in life pulled me away from running. And so it took me time to get back on track, but I think it was inevitable that when I fell back into running, that it would be going into the trail and ultras.
You talked about road running being something where the likelihood of the motivation is beating people or achieving an outcome. And the way that I've always differentiated between road and trail, and funny enough, I actually started on trail. I never actually started on the road. I started on very short 5K community trail runs. So community was always a part of it. Ultra running came later. But I find that road running is very extrinsic. Like, you're constantly looking at your watch. You're constantly looking at your pace. Am I running fast enough? Am I moving fast enough? Whereas trail and ultra feels very intrinsic. Like, it's something you have to be really sure of why you're showing up to do it, because you're out there for longer. Like, if you don't have something to fall back on, it's going to be tough. So what values have you developed in order to live through the ultra and trail world? Like, what do you hold kind of like up here as like, I'm Derek and I value this, and this is how I show up in the world?
I think for one, the biggest one is just kind of knowing that whatever gets tossed at me, no matter how hard, that I can find a way through it. I'm not going to get thrown a hill I can't climb over. It may take a little longer than the last one, but I'm not going to get thrown one that I can't climb over.
Yeah, resilience is what I'm hearing in that.
Yeah, absolutely, and carrying that into everything. And I think the other big one is probably just gratitude. Just ultra running has taught me to just carry so much gratitude into my daily life for all the opportunities that I've been given, to be able to be out there doing that, to be given the opportunity to heal, to be given the opportunity to have the second chance, the third chance, the fourth chance, all of it. And that has made a huge
difference. It's interesting to hear this level of gratitude for gratitude as you're talking, and I could see it in your face, like your recognition of this was impacting you as you were saying it, and I want to, if you're open to it, I want to know why. Why did all of a sudden the word gratitude change like it looked like your face was like, holy shit, I'm recognizing that I'm thankful for the things. Like, is there something that was triggered in you just now as you were answering that question?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just, me being on the verge of tears, to be honest. But it's just, I mean, having that level of gratitude um, has altered my life. Um, and the other thing that ultra running has taught me is not, and I know we've talked about this privately, but just not only having gratitude for all the good things, like the ability to run far and all that stuff, but also having gratitude for the shit, having gratitude for the suck, having gratitude for the horrible, awful moments that teach you something, and gratitude for the lessons that come out of that, and the way that that shapes you going forward. And so I mean, just circling back, but like just having that all encompassing gratitude and really learning and seeing how to just apply that to everything, positive and negative, all the time, has just completely altered the way that I live my life, the way that I see situations, the way that I approach things, everything.
For those of you who are listening to this episode and not watching it, I felt Derek's emotion come through, and I almost started crying myself. Like, I could feel the emotion coming through. And I think when we came up with the title of this podcast, Enduring Minds, Going the Distance, Breaking the Silence, this is what we're talking about. Is like, I honestly felt the energy, and I'm grateful. We're going to use that word for you expressing the gratitude that you have, because I do think that once we become grateful for the things that we have, we tend to push away the concern or the stress of the things that we don't. And it makes life better. Like, it just does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the way I describe it is you're coloring the lens in the way you want to see the world and how you want to show up in the world. Like, you want to show up in the world as a grateful person, and you don't get to choose when you get to be grateful. If that's one of your values, it's like you said, if it's the shit, well, I'm going to be grateful for the chance that I got to go through it and I get to grow from this. And if it's the good stuff, it can be equally the same. Both can exist on the same plane at the same exact time. And that's not an easy skill to learn and accept and appreciate, which I hear, like Jason said. I'm glad Jason said it, because I could see it as well too. And I think that's just because when you surround yourself with people that are, I'll say, on the same wavelength or moving on the same path, or people that want to but don't know how to yet, there's just this like unspoken, I don't know, there's just this unspoken feeling that presents itself. And that's what this podcast, I think, does. I mean, we've had multiple conversations like this where we've pinpointed a feeling just by asking one very simple question. So getting into running in general. So you went from the road to the trail, but how did you get into running at first? What was it? What was the trigger for you?
Yeah, so I mean, that was a little bit of a enduring moment as well. Um, when I was in my early 20s, I had just turned 21 not long before. Um, I was out one night with one of my closest friends who was 23 at the time. This was obviously back in my wilder days. And it was the night before St. Patrick's Day. We had been having a little too much fun that night. And we came back home at the end of the night, and I was unaware, but while my friend was walking around in the house, he had fallen and bumped his head and gotten like a minor concussion, but neither one of us knew because we were near blackout drunk. He went upstairs, went to bed. I went to sleep on the couch downstairs. I woke up like real early in the morning, like 5 a.m. Went home, changed clothes, got ready for work. A few hours went by. I started calling him. Nobody answered the phone. Calling again. Nobody answered. Drove back over to his house. Had a really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach when I got out of the car, and walked in the house, went upstairs, went into his room, and he was in his bed, and he had vomited in his sleep, aspirated, and passed in his sleep. And I was the one who found him. I was the only one there. I had to call 911, do everything. That was a pretty life-altering moment for me at that young, pretty formative age, coming into adulthood. There was probably about 2 weeks following that where I didn't do anything. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking. I wasn't eating. I didn't leave the house. I barely got out of bed. I didn't want to see the sun. I didn't want to do anything. I felt like the whole thing was my fault. I mean, anybody who's been through something like that will tell you about the survivor's guilt, but yeah, I mean, I spent the next year of my life blaming myself for that. Playing the what if game, asking myself, what if I did this? What if I did that? Why didn't I do that? Worrying about his parents, his siblings, his 2 siblings, his 8-year-old niece. Do they all blame me? That's a heavy thing to bear. And that broke me down. But I had to find a way through it, and a few months later, I unfortunately kind of regained and went back into drinking again. Once I had kind of recovered from the initial shock, then it went back into needing to numb that pain. And about, I don't know, probably a month and a half, 2 months later, I'm in my friend's basement, and again, we're just completely wasted. And he says to me out of the blue, talking about how he ran cross country or something when he was, freshman in high school, and how he used to be in such great shape. And then we get on the subject of, running a marathon. He's like, I bet I could run a marathon. You couldn't. He's like, no, you couldn't. I can. So at 2:00 in the morning, we end up going on the Bank of America Chicago Marathon website and signing up for the Chicago Marathon in the middle of the night. We trained together. He kind of fell out of it, ended up not sticking with the training and doing it. I pushed through. I finished the race. I didn't do great, but I finished. And I was hooked. I was hooked on just the feeling of pushing myself to a level that I thought was impossible, and getting there and knowing that it's not only impossible, but that anything's possible, and that I could push myself beyond that if I could get that far. I met some, nothing I said earlier is to knock the road community, because I've got great friends from there. I worked producing road events for over a decade, and I met some great people in that community. And I fell into volunteering events and working events, and then working in run specialty retail, and just an amazing community, and did that for years. And then life kind of took over again. I took a job that I started working events full time, and you're on the road all the time, and you're working crazy hours, and when you're not working, guys just want to hang out and get drunk. And working events is a lot of hurry up and wait, because you're spending hours busting your butt building an event, and then the event's going on, so you're sitting around doing nothing. So guys sit around and chain smoke cigarettes. So I took up smoking cigarettes again, and I just kind of stopped running. And then I took another job that had me on the road 200 days a year, and I had 4 kids, and COVID hit, and life just kind of spun out of control really fast, and I lost track during a lot of that of myself. And you talk about ultra running or any of this stuff, people can look at it and say it's selfish to take all that time for yourself, but at the end of the day, it's really not, and it's beneficial to the people around you. Something my mom always said growing up is the old adage: you got to put your own oxygen mask on before you can help the person next to you. If I can't breathe, I'm no good to anybody, And when I fell back into running, almost 2 years ago now, and quit drinking and got sober for good, I was in a place where I wasn't doing any good to anyone. I wasn't doing any good to my friends. I wasn't doing any good to my family. I wasn't doing any good to my kids. I wasn't doing any good to my wife. I wasn't doing any good to anyone because I was in such a bad hole where every day just consisted of numbing the pain and misery and depression of everything that I was going through. And I couldn't help anyone. And, when I started taking hours and hours in a week to run and get healthy and have a clear mind and take care of myself, I was 1,000 times better of a father, of a spouse, of a son, of a friend to everyone around me because I could breathe. So I could be present and calm to be there for the people around me. And I didn't have to worry about gasping for air myself.
I just want to quickly circle back, Derek, because I have a unique perspective having worked in emergency services for 2 decades.
Absolutely.
When you said that you called 911 and that you felt like it was your fault, I've taken those calls exactly like as you described it. I was literally replaying calls that I've taken for that exact situation in my mind. And for the listeners that are listening to this and don't necessarily understand what it's like to probably only phone 911 maybe once in your life sometimes, and to think that you were thinking that it was your fault, and to know that most of the time the person making that phone call just wants some instructions on how to help the person that they're obviously concerned about. Like, what was the feeling that was going through your body in that moment? If you were to take yourself back to that phone call, I just want people to truly understand how our bodies react in these moments, because we're on the Enduring Minds podcast. And I think I just really want to just go back there just for a moment.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't, my feeling in that moment was nothing. It's literally just it's like a puffer fish puffing or a turtle going into its shell or whatever. When it's that bad, your body's reaction is just shut the fuck down. You know what I mean? Everything is shut down. It's like, just keep the heart beating and the lungs breathing, and you're brain dead, because if we keep you conscious to try to process what's going on, your mind's going to explode. In that moment, calling 911, I was in total denial. I watched the paramedics and firefighters rush into the house and upstairs thinking, there's that thing in the back of your head that says, he's gone. You were up there, you touched him, he's not breathing. But there's also this part of your brain that's saying, you know what, this is just a bad joke. They're going to come down here. They were able to revive him, and everything's going to be okay. And then, that's followed by moments like, his sister and brother showing up at the house and walking in the door, and because his parents were out of town at the time. They were out of state. They had to fly home the next day. But, his brother and sister coming in the house, and they're obviously in the same state of shock and grief stricken. So they are in their own world, and they don't even acknowledge me. And so, by that furthers the react that spiraling thought that, oh my God, this is all your fault. You just murdered your best friend. I mean, like, how do you stomach that? Yeah, and like I said, that's why following that, I just shut down. I mean, there was literally 2 weeks where I did not leave the house. I didn't do anything. The curtains were drawn, everything. Yeah. I think in that moment, you literally just, everything closes.
I want to press rewind to a different part of this conversation. As anybody who knows me, I always think about the what if, but not in a negative sense, because I think this ties into your feelings of gratitude. If your buddy and if he didn't run cross country in high school, but played hockey in high school, right? And it's 2 a.m. and you're shooting the shit with each other, you might have joined a men's rec hockey league instead of finding your way to the Bank of America Chicago Marathon. Do you ever think about shit like that? Like, I could be playing hockey right now for all I know.
Yes.
I mean, you lived in Chicago. This wouldn't be far-fetched. It'd be one thing if
Absolutely.
It was like, oh, I'd be playing highlight, which is not a Chicago sport, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that gives you sort of the depth of gratitude? Like, do you think about that kind of stuff? Like, had I done this or had I done that? And again, not in a negative way, right? Because we can always play the what if on the negative side. But if you were starting to play hockey, like, life would look different.
I do. I definitely think about stuff like that. And I do have gratitude for things like that. And I think one of the things is, and I was going to say it earlier, is, when you really learn to hone in on that level of gratitude, for sure, one of the things that you do is begin to go back and look at past moments where you didn't possess that and reevaluate them. So for sure, I'm a bit of a, weirdo believer in the universe. And so
Same.
I think that I probably would have found my way into this regardless, the way I feel so destined and drawn to it. I think if it wasn't that incident, something else probably would have eventually led me here. So, yeah.
I often play the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with people that are in my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How did I get to meet Derek Sprau? Well, I met Derek Sprau because of Joe Harden. How did I meet Joe Harden? I met Joe Harden because of Ohm. How did I meet Ohm? I met Ohm because he read a Hector Rodriguez post on Run Try Bike's website. How did I start Run Try Bike? It was because it was in the so I play that game myself, and so I'm with you in this idea that I would have eventually found my way here, but the dots that I'm connecting might look a little bit different as well.
For sure. Yeah. No, I love it.
And it goes back to and that's when I go back to the gratitude thing. Like, I'm so thankful that I started this business when I started this business, because if I don't do it then, maybe that intersection of meeting Evan and that intersection of meeting Derek never happens. Right. And so then I'm thankful for the people that are in my life when they are in my life.
Absolutely.
Do you think about, I wrote this down earlier because you mentioned confidence. So as a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, would you have said you were confident back then? And then somehow no. Okay. Why?
No, not at all. You're 25, man. Any 25-year-old that tells you they're really are truly confident lying, because the reality is you're 25, you're scared shitless, you're a young adult, you're trying to figure life out, you don't know what's going on, you're going to act confident everywhere you go every day, you're not going to walk up to a cute girl in the bar and be like, hey, listen, I'm really questioning my life's direction and everything that's going on. And sometimes I like to just cry on my pillow. But, you know, the reality of the situation is everybody at that age is not confident. Everybody is questioning themselves, you know. The same as, you know, we were talking earlier about, you know, it may be hard to talk about some of the stuff we're talking about, but the reality is everybody has some variation of a story in their life that was emotional and affected them and caused them to question things and maybe change their path a little bit or their approach a little bit. You know, we all fight those things, the imposter syndrome, all of it. We're all in it. We're all in this thing together.
I have a really simple question, only because it just popped into my mind. I'm going to ask it. Do you think the goal of life is to be happy, or do you think the goal of life is to show up?
I don't think it's either. I think the goal of life is to love, man. I think the goal of life is to be grateful, love the things around you, love the people around you. And I think that all that other shit follows. Happiness, a sense of wealth, a sense of fulfillment. I think that is the basis. Everything else is, once you have that, everything else is going to find you.
I think about like a lot of the conversation we're having kind of circles around sort of the I define it as the woo woo, right? Like the universe giving us that woo woo feeling and we're dialed into it. Three men that are literally dialed into this whole idea of the universe working with us and sort of the woo woo thinking. If you would have asked me as a 25-year-old about the woo, I'd have been like, not a chance in hell, man. Like I'd
have told you to take your hippie bullshit and shove it on a cracker and get out of my face.
And I think about this all the time because is it experience that gets us to this point? Like, you know, we've lived long enough where we start to recognize shit and we're like, you know what? Most of this crap is so far out of our control that when it does happen, we have to be in the moment to accept it, good, bad, or indifferent. Is that, I mean, what do you think about that?
I think the second half is better than the first half. You know, I remember being 29 and I remember being nervous about turning 30 because I felt like I was going to be old. And I remember all kinds of people who were all kinds of ages older than me, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, all saying, your 30s are so much better than your 20s. And I remember the same thing when I was 39. And they were always right because you get further along and, you start to figure things out. And I think, you know, the biggest thing, and again, it harkens back to the gratitude, is you start to figure out the things that are worth being upset about. You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing. And we, you know, going back to this and Men's Health, November, everything, you know, think about your dad, right? I mean, it's such a common story to hear, especially with our generation, that when you were a kid, your dad was the biggest fucking hard ass on the planet. You know what I mean? He didn't give a fucking inch on anything. You know, my dad grew up a poor farm boy from Iowa, was a Vietnam vet. He was never handed a dang thing in his life. And when I was a kid, he was a hard ass. And now he is like a soft, sweet man. He never raises his voice. He is open and talks about his feelings in a way he never did 30 years ago. You just, you know, and you also hear people talk about it when you get old. You just realize that it also doesn't fucking matter what everybody thinks. All the shit that keeps you caged up in your teens and your 20s and 30s thinking, I can't share this, I can't do this, I got to be careful not to act this way, say this way, wear this, do this, all this stuff because somebody here is going to think this of me or they're going to think that of me. You get into your 30s and 40s and 50s and you realize, who gives a shit? I'm going to be me I'm going to do what makes me happy. I'm going to live my life. And like we were saying, the other stuff follows. You know, the people that like me for who I am are going to find me, and the people that don't are going to drift away. And then eventually you're going to find yourself surrounded by the things that bring that happiness.
So I don't know if you know this, and I don't know how many listeners know this, but my dad passed away when I was 23, and he was a week shy of his 50th birthday. And so when you were talking about ages, I turned 50 uh, in 2023, so 2 years ago. I'll be turning 53 this year. And I will tell you, Derek, I've never been so scared in my life for a birthday, because my dad passed away a week before his 50th birthday. And it was like, fuck, man, like I have, like, life is getting good. Like, and here I am coming up on what would amount to being a milestone birthday. I am scared shitless. And it's more about life having gotten better than turning 50 and getting old. Like, it was not about getting old. It was like, my dad died before his 50, a week before his 50th birthday. And here I am coming up on 50. And it's fucking wild. And I will tell you, the day after, so December 13th, I was 50 years in one day. And that day was the celebration. Like, Lori bought me balloons, and we did the things you do on your birthday. But the day after, I was like, I made it to my 50th birthday and one day beyond. And gratitude, to bring that word up again, was like, it was pouring out of me, because I made it past my 50th birthday that my dad didn't reach. And that was super impactful to be able to do that. And so I hear your story of your, being able to celebrate with your dad now, who's no longer a hard ass. And I'm so thankful that you get to do that, because I didn't get to do that. Like, my dad was a hard ass, and that's all I remember him as. And I saw him on his deathbed, cancer riddled him. Like, he was weak in that situation, but he wasn't soft in that situation, if you know what I mean. It wasn't like, like, he never got to see his grandkid. My sister has a son, and I would imagine that he would have been just like your dad. And so, like, everything that you're saying is like bringing up all these emotions in me. And I want to thank you for that, because I think too often we get buried in the world of technology, that while we're woo-wooing and we're appreciative of stuff, we also get hardened to a lot of shit, because we start questioning, like, why is their life so much better than ours? Meanwhile, it's a fucking box on Instagram in a moment, and they're showing you their highlight reel, and they're not showing you the other 23 hours and 58 minutes that, may have been trauma filled, or the fucking stress that they're dealing with, or how do I pay this bill, and oh my goodness, I got to get my kid to the doctor, like all the shit nobody ever talks about. So thank you for sharing that stuff, because I think it's important that we recognize all of the different components that life is all about. Like, it is the good, the hard, the bad, I'm shutting, like, I think I told you or Joe this, like, I've gotten really good at night of just turning my phone off. Like, I'm just done with it, because I need to be present for my wife, and I need to be present for myself. And if I'm scrolling, or I'm worried about something else, I'm not there. And I think that's where also the softening comes into play, with being able to recognize that I don't need to be Mr. Entrepreneur 24/7.
Yeah, if you want to see an old hard ass dad become soft, give him grandkids.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I mean, my dad's 83. He actually went on the trip with me to the film fest in Kendall in the UK there. And I mean, you just see a level of softening in those individuals. And I hate to say it, but I think it's them making up for what they probably wished they could have done for us. And now they're doing it for their grandkids. So, like, in my opinion, like, all is resolved in my mind. I'm like, if you show up for those girls every day and want to be better, like, that does it for me. I don't know if you have the same experience, Derek.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I say my dad was a hard ass, but I'm also very appreciative of who he was as a father. You know what I mean? and it took time. Obviously, it wasn't until I was probably in my mid to late 20s where I really appreciated that. But I mean, I grew up with kids whose parents were their best friends and would smoke a joint with them in the backyard when they were in high school. But man, those kids are not doing okay right now. Like I'm glad I had a dad that instilled some work ethic and things like that. And I don't even know that it's making up. Just being now at the point in my life where I'm 45 and I've gone through a lot of these changes. And again, this is something else that has come is I'm not so quick anymore to see behavior or something like that, and the first assumption out of my mind isn't that it's bad or vengeful. Having the understanding that you come from somewhere else, you have your own trauma, you have your own bullshit. He grew up with a hard-ass dad. He has his own stuff. He's seen war. He's seen, his friends killed in front of him, all kinds of things that he carries with him every day. And so understanding that, a lot of it is just him having to get to the point in his life where he did that healing, where he could recognize that stuff and realize that, hey, I don't have to be so tough all the time. I can let this shell down. I can be soft. That's okay. It's not going to kill me. There's not somebody waiting for me to take my shield down to stab me in the back every second of it. So,
The world is wild, dude. I will tell you. So last night I got on the elevator. We live in West Hollywood in an apartment complex. I got on the elevator and two young ladies got on, and it was like a 2x4 to my face because I had a realization. In the past, I would have said, how do these two young ladies afford to live in an apartment building in West Hollywood? Right? Because that would have been sort of like the hard ass, like, who the fuck are you to be living here and paying this much rent? You don't know shit. You're 25 years old. And I so when you talk about like seeing other people and understanding that they have histories and backgrounds and all this stuff, for all I know, they are two tech entrepreneurs living in West Hollywood that have invented who the fuck knows what and have plenty of money. Or maybe their parents are, supporting them. Or maybe they got 17 fucking roommates in there. Who cares? But your point right there was exact, which is why I made sort of like a gesture as soon as you said it, like, yes, like recognizing that we all are living different lives and come from different backgrounds with different traumas, with different histories. And we just have to accept people for who they are instead of putting our own histories onto them. Right? Like I didn't have the ability to pay for an apartment in West Hollywood when I was 25 years old. So should I be disparaging people that can? I should be celebrating them that they can, right? Like instead of looking in the other direction. I don't have a question. It was just a recognition of what you said and how it literally happened just last night.
And I totally agree with you. And I mean that right there is something that has developed that I have an immense amount of gratitude for, because just like you said, the young 20-year-old me would immediately snap to judgment on something. And that those kinds of, whether it's under my breath or in the back of my brain or out loud, a lot of those snide remarks that might flow in just don't exist for me anymore. And that's something I'm incredibly grateful for. Whatever it is, when I see somebody or I have an interaction with somebody at CVS and they're a jerk to me, my thought isn't now like, hey buddy, you want to take this in the parking lot? My thought is, man, I wonder what's going on for that guy. I hope he's okay. I hope, if he had a fight with somebody this morning or his wife or whatever, that they make up, it's going to be all right. The whole approach is different. And the gratitude for that comes in the fact that makes me feel so much better. I mean, when we talk about like finding the joy, like to have those just those tiny little interactions that prior would have brought up that negativity in your life, and then you carry that into everything, compounding the rest of your day. And you're carrying that anger, you're carrying that bad negative feeling about somebody else or whatever, even if it's for a split second. You see a douchebag in his Lamborghini, like you're going to carry that into everything instead of being like, sweet car, bro, good for you. You got a fucking Lamborghini. Awesome. And it's just, I have immense gratitude for that growth in myself, because that alone has brought me such a greater level of happiness in my life to not have that about everyone around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it harkens back to that love, feeling that love for somebody I don't even know.
What you just described is truly living through your values. That's what I heard through that entire thing. You mentioned gratitude again. Like, there's certain narrative values that we say we are and how we show up. And like you said, the Lamborghini, you should be like clapping for the guy, like, oh man, that's so good. Like, I'm glad that's for you. That's not for me. Maybe I wouldn't spend my money on that, but like, congratulations. That's amazing. That's for you. But this idea of like living through your values every day, because you talked about also going back and reflecting on the times that you weren't necessarily living through those values. Like, how did it show up for you? Like, because like when you're living through your values, you're in alignment. You're moving forward, and things are showing themselves to you. And that's why I don't really believe in this idea of manifesting things. I believe in the idea of showing up as the person you want to be, and you're going to attract those things. That to me isn't manifesting. That's me making a conscious choice, not thinking that the universe is just going to hand me something. I'm actively being the person I want to be. So what is it like for you when you aren't showing up through your narrative values? Like, what does it feel like in your body? Like, how does it present for you where you're like, no, like I'm not going to keep doing that. I need to get back to where I was.
Yeah, I mean, it feels not good, I mean, but what we're talking about, this kind of growth is a never-ending journey. This isn't like, hey, something happened, I worked through it, I've got it all figured out. Now the rest of my life is going to be peaches and cream because I know how to handle everything. No, you're constantly reevaluating. 2 days ago, I was like running late to work, and somebody cut me off in my car, and my instant, like, audibly out loud was like, oh yeah, it's your turn, jagbag, you go, right? But then the difference is that my immediate next thought following that was, dude, what? You're fine. He's fine. He's probably in a rush and late too. He's probably got some crap going on. Maybe his kid was a pain in the butt this morning. Who his boss yelled at him. You don't know. And to check yourself. And when you talk about, like, or read about, like the mindfulness practices and things like that, everybody talks about how it's not that the distractions don't occur, it's the ability to recognize it and bring yourself back to where you need to be, right? So, and I know, Jason, we've talked about this, about how the concept, and it's something that I say over and over again, it's about progress over perfection, right? It's this constant motion forward. And, knowing that, look, I'm never going to not have these thoughts. I'm never going to not feel sad. I'm never going to not feel angry. It's the ability to recognize each one of those emotions when they happen and stop and analyze what's going on and vocalize it to yourself and move through it with that same growth and progress that you've been applying to everything else.
Yeah, I mean, awareness without action is useless. Like, you can have all the awareness in the world, but if you keep yelling at that guy every single day, like you're not, you're choosing. You're actively choosing to not take an action, and actions are that vote for the person that you want to become. And if you keep voting the other way every single day, that's you're going to develop that personality and develop that feeling constantly. So I 100% agree with where you're going with that.
I was going to ask you, how do you bring yourself back? But instead of doing that, I'm going to ask you with a story. So I often find myself floating off into space in my head. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be doing something else, and getting away from whom I am, and trying to figure out how to bring myself back so that I can present Run, Try, Bike and the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse from my perspective, from who I am as the leader of these two things. And a large part of that comes from talking to Evan regularly, talking to you and Joe regularly, talking to Santino regularly. It helps me bring me back down to the ground to be myself. How have you been able to find the support that you now have? Has it mostly been circumstance that, hey, I connected with this person and they're the people I want in my life, and so you foster that relationship? And then what happens with the people that aren't bringing you that perspective, that allow you to be who you are so that you can continue to grow? How do those relationships, do they end? Do you just let them die on the vine? Because as much as I'd love to be friends with everybody, it's fucking impossible. Can't.
Well, I think it's a little bit like I had mentioned earlier. I think when you begin to fall into that space where you're being very true to yourself and who you are, and being that way on a daily basis in the world around you, I think that those correct people find you, and I think that those incorrect people fade away. So, I don't think that I do much actively for that. I saw a post about a guy doing woodworking on an ultra running thing, and started talking to Joe about that because I woodwork, and now we're friends because we find out through talking that we have more and more in common, and we get along and connect on things, and it just goes from there. On another level, though, you have to be willing to not just rely on friends and people around you. You have to be willing to seek out to do that stuff on your own, to do the work. You have to be willing to go to therapy and do the work, do the things that get you where you gotta go.
I was hoping that would be the answer, because life is work, right? We have to be active participants in life. We have to reach out to people, connect with people, talk to people, whether that's through texts, video chats like this, in-person coffee. You have to do the thing and not be so busy that life passes you by, because then you don't take the moments to connect with people that can provide you that perspective. And I'm big on perspective. And I thank you guys, both of you, on this podcast, because I know I come at this whole life with tons of questions, and you guys allow me to, with answers, you answer my questions and give me perspective that allows me to then get grounded again. And I think that that's the thing that I think men don't do enough of, which is ask questions, ask for help, so that we can get grounded in what we're thinking, so that we can then, instead of yelling, "Hey, jack off, thanks for fucking cutting me off," we can, okay, thanks, jack off, for cutting me off, but maybe that guy's having a bad fucking morning too, right? Bring that back around. And I think these kinds of conversations are why it's important. I go back to young Derek. Was young Derek having conversations like this with people, or was it more, we're all meandering our way through fucking life, man. I can't help you because I don't even know how to help myself.
I think at varying points in my life, especially when certain traumatic things happened, I was, would find myself having very deep conversations with friends or somebody. And, like I said, I think that growth is never ending, but I don't think that it was the same because, again, now at this stage in my life, I have learned that I don't have to give as much of a shit. So when I'm talking to someone like you or Joe, and we're texting or messaging or whatever, I don't question myself in the same way about opening up. I trust myself. I trust that in that ability to just be who I am and say truly what's on my mind without feeling like I have to filter myself for whoever I'm particularly talking to, and know that, at the end of the day, regardless, there's nothing that I can do to control or stop it. And your reaction is either going to end up being one of support and understanding or not. And then I will move on from that. But that I don't have to let that hinder what I'm going to say or how I'm going to say it or how I'm going to share it. So, I think when you get to that point, those conversations inevitably are going to change.
Yeah. And the idea of us always having to be productive and producing, and Jason, you've talked about this a lot. I don't think that's the answer. That's what we've been told we were supposed to be doing in order to find value in our own lives. But slowing down has shown me that that's where I find the value. It's not about how much can I do. It's about what are the main thing, what are the most important things to me, showing up for those every single day. The auxiliary things, if I have the energy and the time to do it, great. And the bullshit that just has to either get done or be pushed off to the side, that's what happens. But I think that's the main thing for me is the slowing down aspect. It creates that space, it creates that safety for us to have these conversations and realize that, hey, there's more of us in this world that want to have these conversations. There's a lot of us that are likely maybe too afraid or don't have the connections that exist in order to have these conversations. And I think that's the sweet spot, is finding these people that are on that same path that you are, that, we're all moving forward in this life together. And I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful way to move forward. And, every guest we've had on this podcast just reminds me further and further that it has nothing to do with productivity and has everything to do with connection.
100%. Derek, in the past, season 1, we had a whole litany of questions that we would end the show on, but we've simplified everything, similar to what Evan literally was just talking about. And so going into the end of this year, it's not a New Year's resolution because we can start today. What's one thing that you want that has happened in 2025 that you want to build upon going into the rest of this year and into 2026?
Exactly what we've been talking about, just continuing to grow and to carry that gratitude and carry that love into everything that I do. And something that has become a very big priority for me personally is to continue the message of exactly what we're talking about, which is talk about it, man. It's okay. Just let it out and talk about it with whoever, because not doing that isn't doing anybody any good. And whatever you're worried about saying, there's 10 people out there with a story that's worse, or a story that's more embarrassing, or a story that's less embarrassing, and it just doesn't matter. Just, like you said, we're all in this together.
Is there something you want to leave on the side of the road? get rid of it, don't need it, don't want it. It served its purpose, and I can move forward.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I don't know that it's possible to just completely drop something like that, because, like I said, I think it's something that you're continually learning how to do. You'll get better every day, but whether or not it's just something that is completely out of your mind forever, I don't think that that's possible. But I mean, the biggest one for me, and it comes back, is just that judgment, or that anger, or that animosity, or any of that stuff. Just carrying that questioning and that love and that acceptance into every interaction that I have, so that there's as little of that in my life as possible.
Dude, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. You've been such a great guest with your honesty and your openness and vulnerability. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, guys, it's been awesome. I appreciate it too. I was looking forward to this one.
We'll see you, buddy.
Yeah, take care.
So we've never done this before, Evan, but I wrote down 3 words that were a thread throughout this entire conversation. And I think it's something I'd like to do going forward with all of our future episodes. Gratitude was a word that got spoken tremendous amount of times. Self-awareness was another part of this conversation, and confidence. And you can line those up as dominoes in any order you want, and every one of them is going to knock over into the other. And I'd like to continue to do this sort of post conversation with our guests to see which words do we define as the descriptor for the episode. And for me, those were the 3. And I know I'm putting you on the spot now, but are there 3 words that you would consider?
Yeah, I mean, gratitude was definitely the prevailing one and all that. The other one was values, just in general, obviously gratitude being a value within that. And really the other one was, I mean, it's more than one word, but is not giving a shit about what other people think. I can't just go to one word there.
Which comes back to confidence. Well, I'll put the one word for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's good to have you back here on this side of the ocean, dude. Congratulations on having Supernova shown at the Kendall Film Festival. Congratulations to you. It's a great film, and I wish you all the best in the accolades that are going to come to you and Nova because of that film. And I'm forever grateful that what turned out from hey, I'd love to talk to you about X has turned into this podcast for 1.5 years now, and the connections to all of the people that we have had on this show. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that, Jason. Right back at you, man.
For those of you who made it through the last hour-ish or so, thank you so much. We will see you 2 weeks on the next episode of Enduring Minds, Going the Distance and Breaking the Silence.